Have you ever heard of a tiny group of city-states taking on the largest empire the world had ever seen? It sounds like the plot of an epic movie, but it really happened. This is the incredible story of the Greco Persian Wars, a conflict that shaped the course of Western civilization. It all started around 499 BCE. Picture this. On one side, you have the mighty Persian Empire, stretching from modern-day Turkey all the way to India. It was a superpower, ruled by a king who commanded immense armies and vast resources. On the other side, you have ancient Greece, not a unified country, but a scattered collection of independent city-states like Athens, Sparta, and Corinth. They were often squabbling amongst themselves, but they shared a common language, culture, and a fierce love for freedom. The spark that lit the fuse was the Ionian Revolt. Several Greek cities in Ionia, which is in modern-day Turkey, were under Persian rule. Tired of being controlled by a foreign power and paying heavy taxes, they decided to rebel. They asked their mainland Greek cousins for help, and Athens, a burgeoning democracy, sent a small fleet of ships. This act of support, though small, was a direct challenge to the Persian king, Darius the Great. Darius was furious. He crushed the Ionian revolt, but he didn't stop there. He saw the mainland Greeks, especially the Athenians, as a threat that needed to be neutralized. His ambition was clear: expand his empire and punish those who dared to defy him. In 490 BCE, Darius launched his first major invasion of Greece. His massive fleet crossed the Aegean Sea, landing on a beach called Marathon, just about 26 miles from Athens. The Athenians were in a panic. They were vastly outnumbered. They sent a runner named Phidippides to ask Sparta for help, a journey of over 140 miles that he famously ran in just 2 days. But the Spartans were in the middle of a religious festival and couldn't march immediately. The Athenians were on their own. What happened next is the stuff of legend. The Athenian army, led by the brilliant general Miltiades, faced the much larger Persian force at Marathon. Instead of waiting to be overwhelmed, the Greeks did the unthinkable. They charged. Using a brilliant tactic of strengthening their flanks and surrounding the Persian center, the Athenians won a stunning and decisive victory. The Persians, shocked and defeated, fled back to their ships and sailed home. The Battle of Marathon was a massive morale boost for the Greeks. It proved that the seemingly invincible Persian army could be beaten. And yes, this is where the modern marathon race gets its name, honoring the legendary run of Phidippides. But the war was far from over. 10 years later, in 480 BCE, Darius' son, Xerxes I, returned to finish what his father had started, and this time he wasn't taking any chances. He assembled one of the largest armies ever seen in the ancient world. Ancient sources say it numbered in the millions, though modern historians estimate it was more like 100,000 to 200,000 soldiers. Still, it was a colossal force, supported by a massive navy. Faced with this overwhelming threat, the Greek city-states finally did something they rarely did. They united. They formed a Hellenic League, with the formidable military power of Sparta leading the land forces and the clever naval power of Athens leading the fleet. Their strategy was to use Greece's geography to their advantage. The first major stand took place at a narrow coastal pass called Thermopylae. You've probably heard of this one. A small force of about 7,000 Greeks, led by the Spartan king Leonidas and his 300 elite warriors, held off Xerxes' entire army for 3 days. It was an incredible display of courage and skill. They blocked the narrow pass, turning the Persians' numerical superiority against them. However, a local trader showed the Persians a secret mountain path that allowed them to surround the Greeks. Realizing the battle was lost, Leonidas dismissed most of the Greek army, ordering them to retreat and prepare for future fights. He and his 300 Spartans, along with a few hundred other Greeks who chose to stay, fought to the last man. They were ultimately defeated, but their sacrifice was not in vain. It bought the Greek allies crucial time to organize their defenses and evacuate Athens. The stand at Thermopylae became an eternal symbol of bravery against impossible odds. While Leonidas was making his stand on land, the Greek navy, led by the Athenian politician Themistocles, was engaged in a naval battle at Artemisium. They held their own against the larger Persian fleet, but retreated after hearing the news from Thermopylae. With the pass at Thermopylae broken, the path to Athens was open. The Persians marched south, captured the city, and burned it to the ground, including the sacred Acropolis. It looked like the end for the Greeks. The Athenian population had been evacuated to the nearby island of Salamis. This is where Themistocles' genius came into play. He knew the Greek navy couldn't win in open water against the more numerous Persian ships, so he devised a brilliant trap. He sent a fake message to Xerxes, pretending to be a traitor. The message claimed the Greek fleet was disorganized and planned to flee from Salamis during the night. Xerxes, eager for a final crushing victory, fell for it hook, line, and sinker. He ordered his fleet to blockade the narrow straits around Salamis, trapping the Greeks. Or so he thought. What he had actually done was trap his own massive fleet in a confined space where their numbers became a disadvantage. The next day, the Battle of Salamis began. The smaller, more agile Greek triremes, which were warships with 3 rows of oars, were perfectly suited for the narrow straits. They rammed and outmaneuvered the bulky Persian ships, which became clogged and couldn't move effectively. It was chaos for the Persian navy. From a golden throne set up on a nearby hill, Xerxes watched in horror as his mighty fleet was systematically destroyed. The Greek victory at Salamis was a massive turning point in the war. It crippled the Persian navy and cut off the army's supply lines. Defeated at sea and worried about being trapped in Greece, Xerxes retreated back to Persia with a large portion of his army. He left behind his general, Mardonius, with a still formidable force to try and finish the conquest the following year. The final major land battle of the war took place in 479 BCE at Plataea. This time it was a full-scale clash between the main Greek allied army, led by the Spartans, and the remaining Persian forces under Mardonius. It was a hard-fought battle, but once again, the superior discipline and tactics of the Greek hoplites, their heavily armed foot soldiers, won the day. Mardonius was killed, and the Persian army was decisively crushed. On the very same day, the remnants of the Persian navy were destroyed by the Greek fleet at the Battle of Mycale on the Ionian coast. These twin victories at Plataea and Mycale effectively ended the Persian invasion of Greece for good. The threat that had loomed over the Greek world for decades was finally lifted, but the story doesn't end there. The wars had a profound and lasting impact. The shared victory fostered a stronger sense of Greek identity, and for Athens it was the beginning of a golden age. Having played a crucial role with their navy, they emerged as the dominant power in the Greek world. They formed the Delian League, an alliance of city-states intended to continue the fight against Persia and liberate the Ionian Greeks. Over time, however, Athens began to use the League's treasury and military to build its own empire, leading to resentment and eventually sparking another major conflict, the Peloponnesian War against Sparta. The Greco Persian Wars are more than just a series of ancient battles. They represent a pivotal moment in history. The victory of the small, disunited Greek city-states against a colossal empire preserved the unique political and cultural developments happening in Greece, most notably the experiment of democracy in Athens. It fueled a cultural explosion, a golden age that gave us the Parthenon, the plays of Sophocles and Euripides, and the philosophies of Socrates and Plato foundations that still influence our world today. It's a timeless story of courage, strategy, and the defense of freedom against overwhelming odds. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next dive into history. See you next time.